My name is Jeff Smith, and in 1973 I started doing canvas work. At that time, clear vinyls were what we utilized for enclosures on boats. This is an example of a clear enclosure. Not sure whether you can see it through with this camera angle, but there's a lot of distortion in here. It makes it difficult to see and difficult to be focused on something that may or may not be floating in the water. Clear vinyl has a couple problems, and today this enclosure should be tighter than ever because today it's about 21 degrees outside. Clear vinyl expands and contracts a great extent. I installed a backdrop on a 37 Topaz back in the 80s, and there was a 100-degree day when I installed it. When I went back to that boat in the wintertime and he hadn't snapped the bottom, and that enclosure was 4 inches short. Now obviously I had not made that enclosure to be 4 inches short, so we know that it shrinks up. When it got warm again, we could put it back in place. Sort of an incredible thing, also very aggravating, but that's what was available back in the 70s. This is a U-zip, and the U-zip was developed because of the expansion and contraction of the vinyl. So when you went to open it, because it was nice and hot out, you would unzip it and roll it up. When you went to close it, it would be because either a cold front had come through, it had gotten to be night, so the temperature changed a little bit, or it started to rain. In either of those cases, because of the climate change, the enclosure has shrunk, so it's very difficult to put it back in place. The advent of the U-zip pulled and stretched it back into place, and that's why we have U-zippers. Another aspect to this that I would like to note is that when you do a full backdrop in conventional vinyl, from ceiling to floor, that's a lot of expansion and contraction that can take place. I believe it's a lot more functional to go from the floor to the rocket launcher or handrail and then do a separate panel from that rail up. A lot more functional. One thing, when you take off this enclosure as designed and it was put on ocean yachts, you have anything that falls on this floor can fall right into the cockpit, including you. By doing it in 2 separate sections, you can take off the whole upper section for the summertime if you're an avid fisherman, when you don't even utilize this and you need to get to all of your rocket launchers. You could have the top portion off but still have the protection of the bottom section. Now, in 1989, I invented EZ2CY, the first rigid enclosure, utilizing acrylic in a body of fabric with zippers so that it would allow it to be used much in the same manners as we did a conventional enclosure. The beauty of acrylic is there's no distortion, it's clearer than glass, works beautiful, and it lasts a long time. The vinyl, like on the back that I showed you just previously, for a charter boat that's utilized in the ocean in hard use, 3 years would be really stretching it. If you have a boat on the Great Lakes and take good care of it, it may last longer, even though that time there would be distortion, shrinkage, expansion, and different difficulties such as that. Acrylic expands and contracts 1/4 of an inch in a 100-degree temperature change for a 4-foot section. That's incredible and minimal and allows us to do an enclosure that fits extraordinary. In 1989, I invented EZ2CY. After inventing that product, in 1992, I did a boat up at the Ocean Yacht Factory. As soon as I did that boat at the factory, where very few people were actually allowed to do canvas work there, the one canvas work that did work there almost exclusively quickly gave me a call. After that, it became a standard product on most ocean yachts, of the larger ocean yachts, at least for the forward and partially of the side panels. That would be Costa Marine. I taught how to do the EZ2CY product. This is easily recognized as EZ2CY because of the many stitches here. The fold that comes up onto the acrylic, 3/4 of an inch, then the zipper, and then this piece here. The track-to-track method of installing, which I developed in 1990, was a necessity of the rigid panels. It enabled you to open and close the panels properly, and for me to get a nice tight fit, and more of a watertight fit than ever before. Shortly after inventing EZ2CY, people were scrambling trying to come up with something competitive, and they came up with clear polycarbonate that they could sew through. It was shortly after that I got calls from people saying, your EZ2CY is turning yellow. And I said, no, acrylic does not turn yellow. You have polycarbonate. My patent, number 5,121,703, covers polycarbonate as well as acrylic, as well as other products. I chose acrylic because of its natural inherent ability to stand up in the sunlight. And also, it's a hard enough product that if you do get a scratch in it, you can compound it out with compounds. Polycarbonate is very soft. If you get a scratch in it, you can't. Now, to overcome the softness of the polycarbonate, some of the boat canvas shops and some of the suppliers started supplying a polycarbonate with a coating put on it. If you look in the fine print of the manufacturer, it says not for a flexing application. So if you can show me a boat that doesn't flex or a panel that doesn't flex, I'd be interested in seeing that. Secondly, when you have a coating, once you scratch the coating, you can't do anything about it. Where with acrylics, if you get a scratch, you can compound that scratch out. Later on, some shops that are pretty reputable started using a thicker polycarbonate with a coating on it. They got them made in larger panels with the coating, but once again, the person selling them that polycarbonate must not have told them that it's not meant for a flexing application, and particularly in curved panels on the front of one of these gorgeous sports fishermen nowadays, the curve would get vertical crazing pretty rapidly because you're stretching the outside coating and compressing the inside coating. Not a good situation, and it's short-lived. This boat has had one panel replaced with polycarbonate. Now, you can't really tell this on the film, and polycarbonate looks very similar to EZ2CY for a short period of time. If you look at it through polarized sunglasses, though, you'll see some rainbow colors. The colors look very similar to what gasoline or oil would be on the water, that type of look. It's not very conducive to looking for oil slicks when you're trying to do fishing. One of the early boats I did in 1990, it would be like in January of 1990, a gentleman with a 45-foot Viking called me up because of an ad I had in a Tournament Digest. And I did his center panel. Once he saw the center panel, he wanted the rest of it. That gentleman became an incredible friend. And an interesting note, when someone asked him what the enclosure cost, he said, I don't know. And the guy says, what do you mean you don't know? He says, I'll know the cost of it when it no longer functions. Well, that took a long time. And like on the Muff Diver, a charter boat that we installed in 1990, we replaced that enclosure 21 years later. And not because the acrylic had turned bad, but because the border fabric of stamoid had disintegrated to the point where we could no longer replace the zippers. Zippers have been one of the weakest links. When I developed the EZ2CY, I tried to make the zippers better. One thing I did was I noted that the big problem with zippers was when people didn't start them properly, which you can't fault them because people were sewing the zipper all the way to the end, and with the enclosure situation the way it is, you couldn't get the male started into the female properly. I started the practice of sewing the male portion of the zipper 1.5 inches from the end so you could take it and properly fit it into the female to get the proper start on the zipper. I also started putting lace pulls on the zipper so you could pull them. You'll note that the enclosure on this 48, if you're an avid boater, is a little different than the ones from the factory. This one was actually done by Joya Sales, I see on the tag, one of our EZ2CY guys back in the day. The ocean yacht from the factory had a hinge in it to shorten it so you could pull it up. This particular boat doesn't have that hinge, and I guess they pull it up underneath of the radio box right up to here and allow it to bow a little bit, which is fine. But the interesting note is that where the hinge was placed on the ocean yacht from the factory wasn't conducive to most people, because the average person's height was a lot different from the tall person that ran ocean yacht and insisted on the hinge being where it was. I wanted to note on this boat that on the corner there's no need for a bent panel, because this corner is already obstructed by a piece of pipework. That's the way this particular manufacturer did these boats. Because the pipework was there, there'd be no sense in spending the extra money for the option of a bent panel. Some sports fishing people want to have a huge front panel that opens, and that's the only panel that opens. But the problem is that when you open it, you get tremendous amount of wind and weather, and you have no other choice. So you want to take these things into consideration, and as you'll see in the next part of the video, I'll explain to you how we did my boat. Okay, I'm standing now at the forward side, and the camera is placed as much as I could right where the helm would be and where the captain would be standing or sitting. So you can see this enclosure is designed so that we have a center panel, we have a V-shaped panel, and then we go to the corner, and that panel actually has a bend in it and it comes back. Right now we're going to talk about the center panel and these two V-shaped panels. I like this configuration because it gives you the ability to open the center panel and or open one of the V panels at a time, which can give you limited air from either direction, either the left or right hand side of it. Note that the zipper is behind the pipe, so the majority of your visibility is not obstructed. If you want a complete open, you can open the center panel and both V panels. It gives you a complete opening from pipe to pipe. This enclosure is very functional. I recommend putting a vent in the top center panel. It allows for a flow of air to come through. When you're running the boat, it's amazing how much air. Sometimes it's enough to relieve the station wagon effect that a lot of boats get. Visibility. One of the other things that we do is work with the fabric that we have onto the glass, or the acrylic, if you will. Originally, when I invented EZ2CY, I went 3/4 of an inch up onto the glass. Not long after that, somebody was copying me. I had to sue them for patent infringement. That's another whole long story. But they went a 1 inch up onto the glass. There's still people out there now that do 1 inch up on the glass. And of course, the EZ2CYs that I taught, all of them are still doing it pretty much the same way that I've seen anywhere. But I want to show you the dramatic difference that it makes. Here's the zipper line, and this is going 1 inch up onto the glass. A zipper is 1.5 inches wide. It's 3/4 of an inch for each side of it. If you place the zipper right up to the glass line, you have a minimum of 3/4 of an inch needed for that zipper. So that's where I try to minimize the fabric going up on here. As you can see in this demo, the fabric's going up onto it 1 inch, and I want to show you what a difference it makes, because when you put the two together, because you're going up 1 inch on one side and 1 on the other, the combination of the three is 3.5 inches. This is what it looks like closer up. I want to show you as we change it. That's peeling off the one side 1/4 inch. Peeling off the other side 1/4 inch. It makes a big difference. In what you're able to see from left to right, you know, if there's a sailboat, a log, something you're looking for, the more visibility you have, the better, and the less big lines you have up here, the cleaner your enclosure is going to look. Again, this is with 3/4 of an inch up. This is the same way that I did EZ2CY, 3/4 of an inch up. The 1 inch was a demonstration for what Barrett enclosures, which evolved into Rainier and other wannabes, have made. So this is 3/4 of an inch, like the EZ2CY, which was the way that I did it, and it was an extraordinary enclosure, and certainly I don't disapprove of it, but I feel that I found a better and cleaner way, and I'm going to demonstrate that. Now we're going to show you with the cool to see and clear to see UV part of the For You to See fraternity, how they do theirs. And it's a 1/2 inch up onto the glass. Hopefully you can see how much cleaner that makes it look and how much more visibility is afforded. Even though it's a 1/4 inch, it's a 1/4 inch on each side, you've gained another 1/2 inch of visibility. Just a closer view of the smaller lines that we've been able to afford by my new method, which I developed in 2011 for the For You to See fraternity, utilizing the Cool to See glass. I want to note in this demo that as you can see outside and through the enclosure, there's snow on the ground. It's 21 degrees outside. My enclosure is very dirty, and I apologize for that, but I'm not going to clean it right now because it's 21 degrees outside. I have this focused in tight so that you can see where the line is if they were to utilize the 1 inch up onto the glass. And I'm going to demonstrate the difference from the 1 inch to the 3/4, which was easy to see why, to the 1/2 inch, which is our new method and the cleanest method. This is particularly important for the bottom because the zipper can only be this close to the track. And the bottom is real critical. You're able to see your bow pulpit and things. Now, what we're going to do for this demo is you'll have to focus on the pilings in front of us with the caps on them and see what kind of difference it makes. So here we go. That's the 3/4, like easy to see why now. Hopefully you can see the difference it made. Now I'm going to show the difference from easy to see why to the cool to see and clear to see on the bottom. Hopefully you'll see how much cleaner and realize through this filming, and I'm not sure how it'll work out, but I'm hoping that you'll be able to see and it'll demonstrate how much cleaner and more visibility you have with. Now I want to show you this bent corner. This boat was, the hardtop was constructed to my specs, so we did the cross brace here and the angle brace here and the cross brace on the side. It left that corner completely open. You can get, this is an option with cool to see and clear to see UV. We can do a bent corner, and you can see how much cleaner it leaves that corner. The alternative on a sharp corner like that would be to put a zipper. Here's a shot of Easy to See Why Aqua Epicurean. Give you an idea of the configuration of the enclosure. You can see the bent corner from the outside. More of an angle shot to show you the complete configuration. This is an aft shot of the enclosure. You can note that the bottom portion I call a show panel, and we're able to have lettering on it. Try to give you an overview of all the different materials. One I didn't mention was actual isinglass, which is actually a mineral, muscovite. A lot of people still use that terminology, never really good in an enclosure. But so you know, we went through vinyls, we went through, I don't believe I mentioned Strataglass. Strataglass and OC are vinyls with a film coating put on them to make them more scratch resistant than conventional vinyl, which does make them better. However, they're still vinyls. They still get the distortion and they still expand and contract. We mentioned polycarbonate. I told you all my views on polycarbonate. I don't particularly like it. Acrylics, which I developed acrylic in the first rigid enclosure in 1989, easy to see why I was an acrylic. Those acrylics and all the acrylics on the market block about 70% of UV. And I developed in 2011 clear to sea UV and cool to sea. They both block 98% of UV, and cool to sea also blocks the heat. Now, no matter what enclosure boat you get onto, what canvas guy, any canvas guy could pick apart some things, whether it be right or wrong, or just different opinions. I can get on the boats and pick it apart. Other people can get on my boats and pick it apart. I can get on the boats that I've done and pick some things apart because I've learned through the years. What level do you want to go to? And what level can you afford? And as you can see from my video, the way that I feel, in my personal opinion, vinyl, I would try to keep to a minimum at door areas where you have to roll them up, or possibly even the whole aft area if you're the type that uses the back only during the winter for your trip north and south, or on occasion when it's very bad weather, but keeping your costs down to a minimum. The acrylic will last so long, and as my one customer told me, you need to take the life of the product and divide it by those years to determine the real cost. So if you have issues with sun and the UV, obvious choice would be the clear to sea UV or the cool to sea. Other acrylics on the market only block 70%, ours block 98%. I firmly believe the cool to sea is the top and premium product, and perhaps you don't want to spring that much money for that. It is a premium, but it's an extraordinary product, makes night vision better. And while it also makes you cooler, you may think that a tint keeps you cooler, but what happens to a tinted enclosure when you get caught out at night? You can't see crap. This enclosure actually makes night vision better. It's all up to you. Make a good choice. The other thing to keep in mind is that the For You to See fraternity of fabricators, which I started in 2011, has grown to 38 member shops right now, and they all are really cool people. They do incredible work, and they all work with one another. So if you get a boat done in Massachusetts and it comes down to Florida and you have an issue with a zipper, our office down in Florida can take care of you. And we're growing, and I'm working very hard to make it grow. So we're getting the right people in. They're now coming down to our research, development, testing, and training center to be trained and certified in the process and making the enclosures right. And we're continually trying to make things better, thinking of what will work for the customer as well as for us, and make a better product for you. You can be rest assured, because they're in this fraternity, they had to be voted in. I had to choose them personally as well. We've got a great group of people that all work with one another to help you, to help the customer, and to be the best we can be. If you happen to talk into a canvas shop that can't do our product, hopefully they'll give you an honest answer and tell you that they can't do it, but not just degrade us so they try to get the job. What I would really encourage you to do is talk to our customers. If you see a boat with cool to sea on it, talk to that customer. Ask them what they think. Talk to customers like the boss lady, as shown in our backdrop for the boat shows. This is an incredible, beautiful 52-foot Ricky Gilligan East Bay Boat Works that is in Avalon, New Jersey. Incredible boat, incredible fisherman. He's done well fishing. I love his enclosure on his boat. He loves his enclosure on his boat. We're happy. I have cool to sea on my boat. I happen to be a little bit prejudiced. Keeps me cooler. My bridge is air conditioned. I'm a wuss. I want to be comfortable. If I get caught out at night, I want to be able to see the markers. I want to see what's floating in the water. I want to see the two idiots in the rowboat right in the middle of the channel as I'm coming in the inlet. I can do that with cool to sea. I love it. I hope you will too. Make your decision. Talk to me if you have any questions. I'm always open for conversation. My phone number is 410-507-1122, or email me, jeff@cy4ez.com. I'd be happy to talk to you, learn, discuss. I'll learn from you. I'm sure you can learn a little bit from me. We can figure out what's best for you.